What if the greatest dynasty in sports history was dismantled not by a rival team, but from within? In the spring of 1997, the Chicago Bulls were on top of the world, but the words of one man would set in motion a chain of events that became the catalyst for Michael Jordan walking away from the game he dominated. That man was general manager Jerry Krause. And to understand how it all fell apart, you have to understand the fault lines that had been cracking for years. This is never just a clash of personalities. It was a fundamental disagreement over who deserved credit for their unprecedented success, a battle of philosophies. On one side, you had Jerry Krause, the architect, a brilliant, if often abrasive, scout who assembled one of the most dominant rosters in history. He was the man who saw the potential in a little-known player from Central Arkansas named Scottie Pippen, orchestrating a draft day trade to bring him to Chicago. He drafted Horace Grant. He traded for Dennis Rodman. He surrounded his stars with crucial role players like Steve Kerr. Krause held the core belief that organizations, not just individuals, are what win championships. On the other side, you had the artists, Coach Phil Jackson and his virtuoso, Michael Jordan. Jackson was the Zen master, the unorthodox leader who made into the immense egos of his superstars. And Jordan was a force of nature who bent the league to his will. The relationship between Krause and his coach and star player was, to put it mildly, fraught with tension. Krause reportedly felt he was a footnote in the story he had written, while Jordan and Jackson viewed him as an intrusive presence who craved credit that belonged to the men on the court. This all came to a head with one infamous quote. Krause famously said, "Players and coaches don't win championships. Organizations win championships." Now, he later insisted he was misquoted and that he actually said they don't win them alone, but the damage was done. To Michael Jordan, it was a slap in the face. It's the kind of comment that fuels a competitor. Years later, in his Hall of Fame speech, Jordan would fire back, "I didn't see organizations playing with the flu in Utah. The battle lines were drawn long before the final season even began." Adding fuel to this fire was the simmering resentment of Scottie Pippen. While Jordan was the undisputed leader, Pippen was the indispensable number 2, a revolutionary point forward instrumental to their 6 championships. Yet, because of the long-term contract he had signed in 1991 for financial security, Pippen entered the 1997-98 season as one of the most underpaid superstars in the league. For context, he was the 6th highest paid player on his own team. Michael Jordan was making over $33 million that season. Pippen was making less than $3 million. Pippen's frustration was an open secret. He felt disrespected by management and by Jerry Krause in particular, who had repeatedly explored trading him, which only deepened the animosity. This led to a defiant act from Pippen. He delayed a necessary foot surgery, waiting until the 1997-98 season was about to begin before having the procedure, a move that would sideline him for the first 35 games. Jordan publicly called it selfish. But it was a power play, an attempt to force the front office's hand. It also put the Bulls' quest for a second three-peat in jeopardy before it even started. The dynasty was showing cracks, not from an external rival, but from a complete internal breakdown of trust. Which leads us to the 1997-98 season. The Bulls were chasing history, but they did so under a cloud of absolute certainty. This was the end. Before the season even tipped off, Jerry Krause made it clear what was coming. He reportedly told Phil Jackson that no matter what happened, even if the team went 82-0 and won the championship, it would be his final season as head coach. The announcement was a power move, the culmination of years of friction. Their relationship had deteriorated to the point that Krause didn't even invite Jackson to his stepdaughter's wedding that summer, though all the assistant coaches were there. By drawing this line in the sand, Krause wasn't just setting up the departure of his coach, he was holding a gun to the head of the entire dynasty. Why? Why would a general manager actively dismantle its own legendary team? From Krause's perspective, this was a calculated business move. The team was aging, expensive, and injury-prone. Dennis Rodman was 37 and becoming more erratic. Scottie Pippen was battling injuries. Krause believed it was better to start a rebuild a year too early than a year too late. But to the players, it was an act of pure ego, a final, definitive confirmation that Krause wanted to prove he could win without them. Because Michael Jordan had made it crystal clear, time and time again, that he would not play for any coach but Phil Jackson. With his characteristic flair for the dramatic, Phil Jackson labeled the 1997-98 season The Last Dance. It was a fitting title for a season that felt more like a 9-month farewell tour than a championship defense. Every game, every press conference was filtered through the lens of the impending breakup. The atmosphere was toxic. They were battling not just their opponents, but the internal strife threatening to tear them apart. Pippen's public feuds with Krause were a constant distraction. Through it all, Jordan had to carry an immense physical and emotional load, willing his fractured team toward one final goal. It's a testament to Jordan's unparalleled will and Jackson's masterful coaching that they were able to block out the noise and still dominate on the court. Against all odds, they made it back to the NBA Finals for a rematch with the Utah Jazz. The series was a brutal war, culminating in Game 6 with one of the most iconic moments in sports history. Seconds ticking away, Jordan steals the ball, drives down the court, crosses over Brian Russell, and hits the game-winning shot. It was the perfect storybook ending. 6th championship, 2nd three-peat. Jordan, frozen in time at the peak of his powers. But the celebration was bittersweet, because everyone knew what was coming next. The dance was over. The championship parade wasn't a celebration, it was a public goodbye. As promised, Phil Jackson walked away. True to his word, Michael Jordan retired for a second time, stating he had no desire to be part of a rebuilding process. Scottie Pippen was dealt to the Houston Rockets in the sign-and-trade. The dynasty was officially dead. The following season, in the lockout-shortened 50-game schedule, the Bulls finished with a dismal 13-37 record. So, who killed the Michael Jordan dynasty? While factors like an aging roster and financial realities certainly played a part, the catalyst was one man's decision. By making Jackson's departure a certainty before the season began, Jerry Krause created an environment where a breakup was inevitable. He turned a potential 7th or even 8th championship run into a quote-unquote last dance. Jordan himself has cited the mental and emotional drain of that final, turmoil-filled season as a major factor in his retirement. In the end, Krause's ego and his inability to coexist with the very legends he helped create made him the architect of the dynasty's demise. The man who built the dynasty was also the man who took it apart.